Well, hello, Dana. How are you this lovely morning?
I'm good, and I'm proud of myself. You want to know why I'm proud of myself?
I am excited to hear this. You never know what's going to be in the next sentence.
Right. So, and actually, this is in keeping with, keeping our listeners updated about our competency in tech.
Yeah, and our continuous improvement drive for the podcast.
And it's all about personal growth. And I had a lot of personal growth last night as I was trying to set up my new mic and my new earphones or earbuds, or like, what do you call these things that are in my ears right now?
Episode 2 of the mic saga.
So they're wired. I mean, I won't bore you any further, but let's just say I am positive it took me 3 times longer than any sort of normal person to figure what is essentially 2 very simple things out. So I am proud of myself. I literally almost called you. But then I was like, no, I can do it. Anyway.
Well, I'm very proud of you for figuring it out. And, upon further reflection in the shower, as I was thinking about my mic misplacement and the direction that I had it pointing the wrong direction, I still think that my mental model wasn't a bad one. Like, I was tech, I did a little marketing, I did a little sales, but you would think that you'd want the logo pointing to the camera in a podcast environment, right? So I'm going to defend myself a little bit from last week, but hey, continual learning, continuous improvement, it's all about personal growth. But hey, can we just pivot to something that actually is warming my heart? So, it's 2024. It's an election season. And we are months away from being absolutely inundated with negativity, regardless of what party you are aligned to or support. And there were just 2 incredibly heartwarming stories this week that literally have grabbed me and consumed me. And I'll start with the one that I think is so cool. I don't know how many people out there are fans of Dave Portnoy and Barstools. We probably have some strong supporters and fans and probably have some haters.
Or we have people who've just never heard of him so quickly.
Oh, you've never heard of him. Yeah, he's the president and CEO of Barstool Sports. And, he's been in the news for a little bit of, we'll call it maybe some not positive news around some of his behaviors. But having said that, last week, there were, I think, over 20 pit bulls that were found in really horrible conditions for, breeding purposes, chained in cages.
Or fighting.
Fighting. And which is, very typical of what they do with pit bulls, which is so sad. But he adopted Miss Peaches. And he brought Miss Peaches home.
And she is an adult pitty, right?
Adult pitty, yeah. She has clearly lived a very difficult life, and you can tell by some of her physical attributes. But having said that, he started the Miss Peaches Instagram page. It has over 300,000 followers, and he raised, through the sale of Miss Peaches merchandise, over $277,000 as of earlier in the week for Miss Peaches. And I will let you know that and that's for the charity that found these dogs, and we're supporting these dogs until they got adopted. And I will let you know that I bought a Miss Peaches sweatshirt. I bought a hoodie.
Nice. I did that once for a goat rescue because all the money went to the goats.
Oh, that's awesome. So that was $277,000 for good to help this animal shelter, which is great. And then the second story that warmed my heart was about Ruth Gottesman. I don't know if you've seen this story. She was a prop.
Totally seen it. Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
What do you think?
Wow.
Right. $1 billion donation. Her husband was one of Warren Buffett's right-hand, men associates at the firm at Berkshire Hathaway. And when he passed, he left her $1 billion in Berkshire Hathaway stock and said, do it with it what you see is best. And she's a professor at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx.
So that's the connection. Okay.
And she donated $1 billion for free education for all these students. And if you haven't seen the video, oh my God, like the students are in the auditorium and just erupt, just absolutely erupt
Or
with
break down into
excitement.
tears because they know they
Yeah.
won't be in debt. Yeah. Yeah.
And from the video I watched this morning, assuming that, that video is accurate, it's enough funding to basically pay for education at that College of Medicine in the Bronx, which is one of the poorest districts in the area, into perpetuity.
Oh my God. So amazing.
Right. So what amazing
Yeah.
stories. Feel good in the height of an election year, which can be negative, two really positive stories this week.
Yeah. And I found a like, I don't know if its core thing is that it's a website or a social account or whatever, but it's called Beautiful News. And it's not just sort of happy cutie stories. It's also just really talking about significant positive things happening in the world, whether it's around human rights or climate or what have you. And man, it was great. Like, I'm not denying that there are horrible things going on in the world, but you can easily forget that there's also significantly positive things going on in the world too. And it was really nice to find that. Yeah, it was called Beautiful News.
Yeah, I'm going to have to follow it. And I think we all have to find a way to infuse positivity in our lives in a time that can be easily absorbed by the negativity. So I'm all down with some beautiful news.
Amen. And that also is a nice segue to our guest, Liz McLean, because Liz is consistently a positive presence wherever she goes. And much of her career has been focused on leadership and management. She began her journey, interestingly, with an international public health organization. She herself was not like a technical public health person, but this organization had a leadership and management development division. And so what that meant was Liz and her coworkers collaborated with ministries of health in developing nations to enhance kind of their management processes, their structures, and just their personal leadership competencies to lead in a very complicated subject matter, public health in a country that's hard in a developed nation, let alone in a developing nation with very little infrastructure and workforce. So then she transitioned into biotech, where she just applied her expertise internally, helping a well-known biopharma manage significant growth and help them build efficiency and leadership and management skills. Throughout her career, she's been involved in driving change and scaling processes, right? So all that work is about enabling improvement. And also, one thing I love about her is that she's always approaching from a systems perspective, meaning if you move one lever, there's a whole bunch of other levers that are affected.
Oh yeah, love that.
And she brings that consistently. And she's not only a highly skilled facilitator, trainer, mentor, she's also a certified coach, certified through the ICF, International Coaching Federation. And she holds an undergrad degree in art history and an MBA. And she recently completed, and we're going to ask her about this, a specialized course at MIT on AI and its implications for business strategy. So right on, let's welcome Liz.
Welcome, Liz.
So we're going to dive right in and talk about a common challenge, which is you recently started Senior Director of Talent Management and Organizational Learning, and you've inherited a team. Taking over leadership of an existing team can be tricky. From a leadership management point of view, what's been important to you in getting started off on the right foot with that?
Yeah. Such an exciting time to join a new organization. And actually, when you join a new organization, you have so much grace to just ask questions and be curious. So I actually set a mantra for myself before joining, which was to have a curious mind and a wise heart. Through my experience, I've got a lot of wisdom, a lot of things to bring, had some point of views on some of the areas that we'd be working in, but just knowing I'm going to be in this different environment, different organization. And so how can I remain really curious about that and learn from people what's going on here? How does this experience play out? Why does this matter? Tell me more about that. So going in with that kind of mindset, I think is really important in a new organization, or even if you're transitioning teams inside an organization, just sort of sit your mental models to one side and go in and know that you can bring both. You can bring that curiosity and your experience.
I'll just say something super quick, Rose, which is allow me on the behalf of your employees and all employees everywhere. Thank you. Because there's nothing more annoying, in my opinion, than a new manager or leader coming in and not asking anything that shows any curiosity and just says, here's the deal, here's how we're going to do it or something. Like, so I just thank you on behalf of all employees out there.
Well, and I have a follow-on because, I came, and I'm sure you're under the same execution pressure. One of the challenges that I always had is I went in with this, curious mind and open heart with an albatross of execution wrapped around my shoulders. How do you
What an image. What an image. The
Big
new
heart,
podcast
big heart.
branding.
Yeah, I know. So how did you strike a balance? I will tell you, I did a horrible job at it. So I am actually listening intently to see how you kind of maintain the balance of execution, curiosity, and leading with your heart.
Yeah. Well, it's only been a month, but we sure have executed a lot of things during that time.
Yeah.
And so I would say, one of my other philosophies that I have is that this is like a long game that we're in. Where we are as an organization is where we are today. And we are going to roll out processes and programs to meet those needs of what's happening today. And then next year, we're going to make it better. And it's going to evolve to change into what's happening internally and externally in the dynamic. And so just knowing that we're not carving Michelangelo's David, there's no beautiful marble sculpture that we have to get perfect at this in time that's going to be there forever, that people are going to look at. We're going to launch a talent review process that folks have been working hard on diligently to say, what's the right situation for right now? And yeah, we already know there are 3 things that we wish we might change about it, but here's the go live date. So here's what's not changing about it. We're going to do this. We're going to know that we're going to make these improvements next time around. And just managing that, for the team and our stakeholders as well, because we all have to do that. I mean, you work so hard on launching, especially in a global enterprise environment, something, but it's going to continually improve.
Okay. Follow-on question, then we'll move on to another one. But you brought up the stakeholder thing. And here's what I've found in a role like yours, because I've had roles like yours, which is it's an internal function that supports the rest of the organization. You're not customer facing. And Rose, maybe you have too. I don't know. You can say what you just said to your staff, and that hopefully will accept that. Sometimes it's hard to get your stakeholders to accept that. Or the other scenario is, and your team knows that only so much is possible out of the gate. Your stakeholders don't necessarily appreciate that because they're not as inside of what it takes. So how do you manage that dynamic?
Stakeholder management is so critical. So the role that I'm in is a center of excellence inside of an organization. And so for the most part, our stakeholders are other HR colleagues. The end stakeholder is like the business overall. Do we have the right talent to deliver on the mission of the organization? Are we developing the way that
Rose? Yes.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really important to get what we're doing, the big why. We know, I like to say we know our talent through our talent processes, and we're going to grow our talent through the development programming in order to deliver the organizational strategy, right? It's not just to do that because we want people to stay at the company or get good pulse scores. It's yeah, we want them to stay here, but we want them to stay so that we've got really great talent delivering what they need to do for the business. So that piece of keeping it in mind is really important. But the stakeholder management and engagement piece, is so important when you're launching those enterprise programs to talk to those different stakeholder groups to say, what's the biggest issue and challenge that you're facing in this process? How does the goal of this particular program or process resonate for your group? What else do you need? What else are you doing in this space? Really doing a lot of that work up front just to understand what the needs are and the different points of view. And then there are always going to be things that were on the wish list from your stakeholders that aren't going to be there, and acknowledging that and saying, this year we couldn't get to this for XYZ reasons. It had these different technology implications or whatever.
Yeah. So the collaboration and the ongoing communication is super critical for your stakeholder management. I love that. So as Dana mentioned in your intro, we all know that AI is all the rage right now. And a few months ago, you completed a 6-week AI and business strategy at the MIT Sloan Executive Education Department. So, how are managers and leaders evolving, changing? What's going to be different in the advent of AI?
Yeah, so when I was taking that course, I was really taking it with the lens of talent overall. So there are lots of different ways that organizations can benefit from AI in terms of manufacturing, shipping, supply chain management, so many great use cases for how to do it. And I wanted to focus in on, from a talent perspective, how might we think about integrating AI? And even in HR generally, things like automating some processes like triggers in an employee's life cycle. Like, for example, opening a new rec. There are so many different steps in the following processes for recruitment, and really being able to surface and send those to people without them having to go look. Surfacing and sending some of the process steps directly in the flow of work will be possible in that space.
And just to clarify, by rec, you mean like a job requisition?
Yeah, like a job requisition.
And just to add, oh my gosh, what I would have given for automation in the hiring process. Oh my gosh. What a perfect application.
Yeah, having recently gone through the hiring process, one thing that I noticed some companies doing is using a bot for scheduling. And I was just thinking, holy moly, how much time do we spend with leaders in our organization figuring out when they're free, with candidates figuring out when they're free, matching it all up? That is not something that a human needs to be involved in. That is something that a bot can really sort out with all the data that it has. So I loved that process. That seemed like such a lifesaver on the business side of things. But when I was thinking about a talent perspective and AI, one of the phrases that really came to me that stuck out is this individualization at scale for development. You hear a lot about individualization in terms of sales. You go out and you have individualization at scale where we know how we can approach all different types of customers. And there's lots of ways to support those more nuanced engagements that you have based on the profile of the individual. Well, we can do that from a talent perspective as well, where it's not as reliant on managers individually knowing everyone's interests, perspectives, where they want to go and what the opportunities are, but from an employee being able to say, here are my strengths, here are some areas where I might have gaps, here are areas that I'm interested in growing, and setting up that system to surface job profiles for which they might currently have the skill sets for, surfacing development opportunities, maybe short-term assignments or gigs inside the organization. All sorts of stuff can come to them.
Well, I can as you were talking, Liz, I was thinking about the processes that I would use. You put a lot of time into a job rec to get the skill set and the inclusiveness that you want to bring the best set of resources to the opportunity as possible. And then I would create a freaking Excel spreadsheet with all the competencies and every single name. And I'd read all the resumes and I'd check the boxes. And then I'd filter out, the people that were manufacturing people that wanted to be the VP of sales, right? There was no match of skills, the complete disconnects. But then you would have to, I would respond to every single one of them personally with, I'm sorry, we're not going to proceed with the interview. And here are the mismatch in expectations versus your skill set. That could totally be automated. It would have saved me, I am not kidding you, Liz, tens and tens of hours.
Yeah. And think of how much time that frees up for you to do much more value add work as a recruiter and looking for underrepresented talent, going out, making connections in new communities, different places, doing more work to understand what are the capabilities that are needed for the future? How does this connect to the business? Spending time on the things that are going to really make a difference to the bottom line with some of those more basic filtering features based on language that can be done through natural language processing and large language models.
It will free up time for you to do the stuff that has substance, that is value add, and the AI can take care of the other stuff. If we can leverage it that way, then it brings goodness.
Yeah, I heard someone call it, and I've often heard it referenced, and actually Microsoft branded it this way. It's a co-pilot. It's not the pilot, it's the co-pilot. And I absolutely love that. So you went away to the 6-week class. You came away with the nugget of individualization at scale for development. Now you're in front of a bunch of leaders and managers. You've come back from the session. What is the one thing that you would suggest that they do relative to AI?
Yeah, I think in the HR space, really defining what the appetite is in this area, because there are so many different ways that you can begin integrating it in your business. So figuring out where you want to move the needle. Is it that you're going to be going through upscaling your organization? You're going to be doing a lot of recruiting, and you really want to make sure that you're freeing up some of that operational time to do more value add work inside the organization. Or if you're an organization that's trying to build agility and you're going to be looking at how are you going to be reskilling people for different areas in the future, that's a space where I'd lean more into kind of the skills, talent development side of the house and making sure that you're identifying heat maps of the skills you have in the organization, looking at the jobs, architecture that you'll have for the future need, figuring out how can you build that development over time so you're really doing that reskilling. So I think there's lots of different ways. And it's one of those areas where you kind of have to go slow to go fast. Like you need to have that meeting to align overall, again, with my HR lens on what is our aspiration in this space? Because each decision that different groups are making today are going to have an impact long-term on what your overall approach would look like. For example, if you have a recruiting system where you're already collecting skills inside of that, that gives you a lot of great information that you could use later to continue to build those profiles and look at what you have internally or not. But is that recruiting platform tied to your other HR systems once people are onboarded inside the organization, or are people going to have to put their skills in a new system and maintain that over time? So getting kind of a big picture view of like, what are all the different legs that we have for this? What's our interest overall, so that each of the groups can be making more informed incremental steps.
In my intro of you, Liz, I mentioned you were a systems thinker. And thank you for that example of systems thinking. But yeah, and like what I'm hearing is you've just got to find your way in. Don't try to boil the ocean and be like, let's apply AI to everything we do. And it's funny, I just coincidentally attended a webinar on AI this morning, and they ended with that. Just know your purpose, like know what purpose you want to apply AI to, and start there.
So Dana, I think we need to hit some hot takes here, because there was so many interesting insights that Liz brought to the party in this interview.
Yeah, all kinds. You start.
Okay. Like I said, when she actually said it in the podcast, I absolutely loved curious mind and wise heart when it comes as an approach to leading a new organization. I thought that was just a really elegant, inclusive, insightful way to say what we all try and do. And as I noted, I fail miserably at it often because I fell prey to trying to balance the expectation of results while taking time to listen. And then, she said, don't forget it's a long game. And, I loved her analogy of we aren't carving Michelangelo's David. And in my language, I'd say you got to hit some singles, but you don't have to hit 3 grand slams in the first inning, right? So I thought that insight was super relevant.
Also, just so you know, Rose, I think what I'll be taking away with me most vividly is the image of you carrying the albatross of execution hanging from your neck.
It is a good visual. Maybe we should find a GIF or something for our LinkedIn group that we encourage you all to join. Maestro Mindset LinkedIn group.
Yes.
And what was your hot take? That was mine. So you get to go next.
Okay. Well, all of our stuff about artificial intelligence was incredibly helpful. There's so many ways to think about it. And I just liked her point of find your way in. Identify that one need that is most pressing and see where AI can help you. And I just really like that. It was just a very practical way to say, how do we get started with this?
Yeah, and I like the comment. I think her statement was individualization at scale. The visual of using AI as your co-pilot, which is obviously, as we noted, Microsoft's brand, for really mundane tasks that allow you then to increase the productivity of your employee base by not replacing them in all cases, but to allow them to do more beneficial, more productive work.
The more substantive stuff.
More substance, exactly. So that was part 1 of our Liz interview. We are excited to share with you next week, part 2. Thank you, Liz, and we will see you all next week on Maestro Mindset.